Hello, and today we're going to be reviewing the Ryobi p727 18V 2-panel work light. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first up we have the battery slot. Now the battery slot is located at the base of the tool and will accept any of Ryobi's 18V batteries. Quite frankly, it's adequate. There's a little bit of looseness, but you don't need to worry about dropping batteries or anything. And even if you are using a very small battery, say a 1.5 amp hour battery, the light will not fall over even when you have it in the desk lamp position. So quite frankly, I don't really have any complaints and everything here gets a pass. Well, there's one other thing I would change, but that really has nothing to do with the battery. I would like to have maybe seen an AC plug-in port so you could plug an extension cord into it. That would have been very handy because you can mount this light, and well, that just would have been a nice option to have, but it probably would have made this tool a little bit more bulky, so there are trade-offs. But when it comes to the battery slot, no real complaints there. Okay, next up we have the power button. The power button is located at the base of the tool directly in front of the first panel light and is an electronic switch with a hard rubber cover. Now when you press the switch once, the light will turn on with both panels activating, and then when you press it a second time, then the top panel will turn off and the first panel will remain lit. And then when you press it a third time, then the first panel will turn off and the second panel will activate. And then when you press it a fourth time, then the light turns off. I don't really have any major complaints here other than the fact that I would have liked to have seen some sort of a brightness control, but we didn't get that. And the fact that the rubber that they went with is incredibly stiff, and that makes it a pain sometimes to, well, turn on and off. And you want to make sure that you are always pressing the center of the switch, because if you don't press it in the center, it's next to impossible to turn the light on and off. But I guess that could be a good thing if you're actively transporting this light in a bag full of power tools and you have a battery inserted and you don't want it to accidentally activate itself and drain your battery. But for my own personal preferences, I would have liked to have seen a secondary control for brightness and, well, a soft rubber cover for the button. But with that being said, it definitely still has fairly good controls, and at least there's no strobe mode. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, next up we have the plastic hanging hooks and the, well, center hook. Now, the two plastic hanging hooks are located at either end of the light panels. One is on a fold-out handle, and the other is located at the base of the tool. These folding hooks are going to be good for, well, using it to secure it to, say, some tent line or a wire, depending on what you want to hang it on, but really nothing else. Now, there are little cutouts on there so you can mount it onto a wall or onto a workbench or something via nails or screws, but usually you have to have those perfectly measured out, so unless you are planning on using this long term in a certain spot, I probably wouldn't really bother with it, but it is a nice option to have, I guess. So at the end of the day, these are decent options for mounting, but like I said earlier, it's not something I personally utilize. Now, the center hook is another story, however. That is going to be useful, I think, in far more interesting circumstances, because you can utilize that when the light is folded up. So it's basically a 360 light, and if you're working, say, in a tight space and you want light all around you, say you're in a tent or in a cramped crawl space in your house, this could definitely be something I could see working as long as you have a thin line of rope or wire to mount it on. So that is something I may utilize eventually. So I do like the center mounting or hanging hook, but the ones at either end are just not something I personally use. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the tiny carrying handle. Just kidding, I'm pretty sure it's just something you use in order to keep the light flush against whatever surface you're mounting it on. But if you so choose to, you can use it as a tiny carrying handle. Just be aware that if you want to carry it with your arm completely outstretched, flat against the side of your body, you're going to have to be at least 6'1", and, well, yeah, that's about the size of it. It's definitely not a carrying handle, but you can use it as a carrying handle for 2 fingers if you so choose to. And other than that, it does work for making it flush against the surface, so you can use screws or nails to mount it to the wall or underneath the workbench or something. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Moving on. Okay, next up we have the hinge. Now the hinge on this particular light is a fairly standard design. It's just a bolt that goes through from one side to the other side and hooks into a, well, metal nut, and those two pieces are mounted in plastic, which isn't ideal, but it gets the job done, and I haven't had any major issues after the first light I ordered. And the only reason why I had a problem with the first light was because whoever assembled it at the factory over-tightened it and broke the, well, housing for the nut on the one side, which means that it was basically non-functional because it wouldn't stay in place. So if your light does become loose over time and you try to tighten it, just make sure you don't over tighten it. But with that being said, it's a perfectly acceptable design, and it allows the top panel to fold back from a 90-degree angle all the way to the rear side of the tool. That basically allows you to have a 360 light. So it's definitely kind of a cool design, which allows you to have some versatility in whatever workspace you are trying to illuminate. Just keep in mind that since it's a smooth axis, or an axis with no positive stops, if you're planning on using this on a moving vehicle or something in motion, there's a good chance it won't stay where you have it positioned, unless it's in the desk lamp or 360 light position. Anywhere in between, there's a good chance it will adjust itself since there are no positive stops. So yeah, that's about the size of it. Moving on. Okay, last but not least, we have the LED panels. Now, the LED panels on this particular light are definitely a little bit different than what you'll find on a typical work light. Most typical work lights feature LED beads that are on a flat panel behind a, well, see-through or translucent cover. Now, what Ryobi decided to do with this particular work light would be to put those LED panels or beads directly behind a diffused light cover, which will allow you to have more even lighting and also protect your vision if you accidentally look at the light source itself. Think of it kind of as a lampshade almost that is made out of plastic and covers your LED light source. It's definitely a little bit more of an unusual design, but I think they went with the right choice, especially if you are looking to mount this long term or are using it for video or photography work, which I know a lot of people do with this particular light. So overall, I have to say I'm fairly happy with that direction. Where I think they went wrong, however, would be the fact that this light only puts out 950 lumens of illumination, which sounds like quite a bit until you start using this light outdoors or for video work at higher frame rates. Now, I know this isn't a dedicated work light, but it's so versatile and it's such a useful light that I know a lot of people use it for that. And I think if it had been a brighter light, it would have been far more appealing to a lot of people. So I hope in future iterations of this particular work light that they decide to boost the lumens and give you some brightness control, please. But other than that, I have to say that I think that Ryobi made all the right decisions when it comes to their light panels, other than the lumen count. So yeah, no real complaints here, and I think it does a good job. Moving on. Okay, moving on to weight. The tool weighs 814 grams without a battery, which translates out to about 1.8 pounds. And with a 4 amp hour battery, it weighs 1,534 grams, which is 3.4 pounds. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this light in use. I have to say that I've been fairly happy with this particular light's configuration, and I think Ryobi definitely has a winner on this particular product. It's really nice to be able to have a more compact work light that's a little bit skinnier and less bulky, and that will fit into a bag easier than, you know, the standard work light that you'll see from most manufacturers. And even Ryobi makes some decent bulky work lights, but I really do like the overall size of this particular work light. Just the ability to have it be a little bit more foldable and compact is a game changer in a lot of different situations. I like the fact that you can basically use it as a 360 light with only a little bit of dead space in between the two different sides, or as a foldable desk lamp. Both those configurations are super useful in a variety of different situations, and I have found both incredibly handy. And of course, you can use both panels at the same time when you fold it only halfway, so there is definitely some pros here when it comes to illuminating certain objects in your work area. And for video work, it does a fantastic job, and it's definitely my go-to for when I need to pack something light and easy that runs off a battery. Now, where this light falls a little bit short would be outdoors, unfortunately. 950 lumens, while it may be adequate for indoor use, is definitely a little bit on the short side for outdoor projects. If the project outdoors is small, it will be sufficient, but if you're having to illuminate a larger outdoor project, you should probably look at packing 2 of these or just a whole nother light altogether. I really think that for outdoor projects you should be looking at least 1,500 lumens, and higher than that is, well, going to be better pretty much every single time. So at the end of the day, for indoor uses, this is a fantastic little light. For outdoor uses, as long as it's not huge, it will work, but if the use is going to be a large area, you're going to want to pack 2. But with that being said, let's go ahead and recap with the pros and cons. First up, 18 volt. 18 volt means that this is going to be compatible with your Ryobi 18 volt batteries, and if you so choose to, you can use third-party adapters to adapt batteries over from other brands. Just remember, you do that at your own risk. Folding. The folding ability of this particular work light will allow you to tackle several different situations that other more traditional work lights will not be able to handle. And so, in my opinion, this is a pro. Hanging. This light comes equipped with several different hooks and in several different locations, which will allow you to hang this light from several different positions, which could be very handy for when you're working in tight spaces or camping. Mountable. Now, this isn't something I would necessarily do myself, but you are able to mount this light, and that could be handy for if you need to illuminate an area above a workbench or something else. So, in my opinion, this is a nice option to have, and so it's a pro. 3 modes, as in you can basically turn both lights on at once. You can turn one light on, turn the other one off, or vice versa. And that's a nice option to have. And the first meh would be the brightness. Overall, I really was wishing that it was a little bit brighter in certain situations. Not that it was going to be horrible in any situation, but there were just times I was hoping that it was a little bit brighter, and it kind of left me with that feeling of meh. Not dual power. I was really wishing that they would have a dual powered version of this particular light, just because if you're going to mount it somewhere, it might be nice to be able to plug an extension cord into it as well. But at the end of the day, it is not, so you're going to have to be happy with just the battery slot. Moving on. Price. Now, the price could be justified because of the unique design, but when you consider the lumen count, the asking price does seem to be a little bit on the high side. Moving on. No brightness control. I really would have liked to have the ability to control the brightness of the light without having to switch off a panel. So I really think that this is a little bit of a con. Stiff button. The button on this particular light is incredibly stiff, and I really would have liked to have seen a softer button. Sometimes when you press the button and you don't get it just right, it's a little bit irritating when the light doesn't turn on or switch modes. So just a small con, but still a con. And that is it for the pros and cons. Final thoughts on this particular work light. Overall, it's a decent work light. I definitely think it's more suited for indoor environments, but you can use it outdoors if you have only a small project that you're working on. I think that the unique design is definitely something that a lot of people will find handy, and if you are considering this work light and you are willing to pay the price, it comes recommended. And that is it for this particular video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. God bless.